So often in clinical spaces, it can feel like there's only one way. So one way or the highway vibes, and the highway being you don't get pregnant. But I'm here to tell you that there are some things that they are not telling you in those clinical spaces, especially about egg quality, and probably because it might make you rely less on them, so maybe less money in it for them. Who's to say? But there are some things that they are not telling you about egg quality, and today we are going to talk about it because this can make a huge difference to your conception journey. As a reminder, I'm Bianca, fertility diet and lifestyle coach, professionally trained chef, holistic nutritionist, and I help people get and stay pregnant, and I hope to do the same for you. The thing that they are not telling you that actually makes me want to flip a table Teresa Giudice styles is that lifestyle matters so much to your egg quality. So smoking, yes. Drinking, yes. Those absolutely matter. And those are the questions that you do get asked. And thankfully, because that's important information. That being said, things like, do you wear a lot of fragrance? Do you wear a lot of makeup? Do you wear perfume? Do you use Febreze? Do you use bleach as a cleaner? Are you inhaling a lot of chemicals? Do you work somewhere where there's a lot of chemical exposure? We are not being told that the oxidative stress that comes from these types of chemicals in our body can really damage our cells. And what are eggs? Cells. And so one of the things that I'm always encouraging my clients to do is to look really long and hard at their environment. There are toxins and toxic chemicals that we can't do anything about. We go outside and we have very little control over the air that we breathe. It's a sad fact, but it's true. However, in the home where we live, we are the ones who dictate what we clean with, what we make things smell nice with, what we clean our clothes with, what we bathe our bodies with, what we slather on as moisturizer. Those are decisions that we get to make, and those decisions have a huge impact on what is happening with your fertility. I always say, food and diet and the lifestyle changes, balancing your blood sugar, harmonizing your gut, optimizing your liver, lowering inflammation and cortisol, all of that will take you 60% of the way. The last 40 or 35%, I would say for most people, is the lifestyle factor. Are you exposing yourself to a lot of toxic chemicals? Are you using a lot of glass? If you're using a lot of glass, good. But are you using a lot of plastic? Does a lot of your things come in plastic and stay stored in plastic? Plastic is dubious because it is truly everywhere. There are plastic particles in every single part of our bodies, every single one of us. At this point, we can't do anything about it. But we can limit our exposure now, knowing what we know. So are you using a lot of things and putting them in plastic? Do you get a lot of takeout and it comes in plastic? Even if it comes in paper, it's lined in plastic. So you have to remove it from those things. Because if you are not being mindful of what's going on that lifestyle toxin exposure side of things, you could be doing all of the right things from a diet perspective and wondering why things are still not working out for you. And I'm here to tell you, it's because diet is a big portion of this. You'll never hear me say something else. However, lifestyle is also a big portion of it, especially if you are someone who likes a lot of these chemically things. Do you love Bath and Body Works? That has to change because honestly, the fragrance in that stuff is terrible. Do you burn a lot of candles? Not great. Are you using something like Febreze? Also not great. I hate to use brand names and sort of slag off any companies, but I mean, they can't argue the fact that they use a lot of scent and fragrance and chemicals and a lot of things that make it stick. Because also that's the issue is there's a lot of things in these fragrances and in these fragranced items that are meant to last a long time. So they have chemicals in there that make them stick and stay and last longer, but that's not good for us. And so you have to be really mindful of that. That is one of the things that you aren't being told in a fertility clinic space. The fact that people aren't asked how they store their food and how much like plastic is involved in their like food and cooking preparation, I think is wild to me. Because for me, if I have a client, it's like, we're not using Teflon anymore. We're not using nonstick. We're using stainless. We're using cast iron. We're storing things in plastic. Oh, why do I keep wanting to say that? We're storing things in glass, not plastic, but we are being really mindful of the exposures in our home, because that's where we have the control, and it makes a difference. I think sometimes we think that that's like, well, that can't have that big of an impact. It does. It really, really does. And again, when we're compounding it on top of all these other things that might be at play with what's going on with your fertility, certainly if you're over 40, toxin exposure has to be like at the top of your mind, because as we get older, yes, we are dealing with less eggs, but the quality of those eggs is in our control. But the older you get, the more sensy that our cells can be to things like oxidative stress. And these toxins cause oxidative stress when we are exposed to them in droves. And some will say it doesn't matter, but we're not listening to those some. We're listening to me. One way to know that fragrance especially is insidious and dubious when it comes to fertility is almost every single fertility clinic that you go to is fragrance free. It is a fragrance free environment. You are not allowed to have scent on your person when you go into that space, because they recognize how toxic it is for the things that they might be doing in there, the procedures that they might be doing in there, in the air, to be touching some of the eggs or the embryos, what have you. Now, if that's what they're doing, why would it make sense for you to go home and spray yourself with perfume and plug in a Febreze when they're telling you by how they are behaving and some of their policies in place that this stuff is no good? But they're not telling you that you probably benefit from removing it from your life. So I take that as my cue, and that's the cue that I give to my clients, is that we are now, if we want fragrance and we want nice smelling things, we'll use things like essential oils. If our house smells like garbage, instead of spraying Febreze, maybe we just take the garbage out. A thought. So it's very important on your fertility journey to remember that when it comes to egg quality, it's about your whole body. What's going on with your whole body. And when you have high toxin exposure, your liver is probably doing a lot more than it needs to be doing, just managing that, and therefore does not have the capacity to effectively balance your hormones, effectively balance your blood sugar, and therefore that can present issues with your fertility. When you release the toxic burden of lots of exposure to fragrance and scent and plastics and all of these things that are just bad for our hormone function, but also just bad for our liver because they are toxic material. When we release that burden on our liver and our body, it has more energy to do the things that it needs to do that lead to good fertility, like balancing blood sugar and balancing hormones. So, I mean, I can't speak to it enough, because, you'll see people, they're beating their heads against the wall, doing all of the diet stuff, taking all of the supplements, but that toxic burden vibe has not been resolved. And they're starting to blame themselves. Like, I'm doing everything right. Maybe it's just not going to work out. But it's like, nah, we got to look at the lifestyle piece. And one of the biggest part of the lifestyle piece is toxin exposure. So bringing some resolve to that and bringing some management to that, and I say management because if you haven't thought about it, you have a lot of plastic and like stuff in your life because it's everywhere. It's so easy. It's how most things come unless you put intention toward doing things differently. And in some cases, it's just impossible, and I get that, but we do our best. We reduce our exposure as much as possible. I would say the most important place is in the food that we eat. So not storing things in plastic, not warming things up in plastic. If things come to you in plastic, you take it out of the plastic and you put it in glass. Not drinking out of plastic, not doing anything in plastic as much as you can as far as consumption of food. That's like the top of the heap. And then starting to look at like fragrance. Febreze, just throw it out. Glade plugins, just throw it out. If you have perfume, if it's like an expensive perfume, shelf it for the minute. Because Like, I'm not going to get you to throw out like a $400 perfume. That said, you're also not going to be spraying it on yourself for the next little while. So you kind of just have to like accept that. When it comes to like skin cream and moisturizer, looking and see if there's fragrance in that, because that's going all over your body. So there are ways to prioritize it. In the Fertility Blueprint, we talk a lot about this process in the liver workshop and in the liver module, just because this is where you see the most benefit by reducing your toxin exposure on your liver function. And that means so much to our hormones and our blood sugar and just like our overall fertility baseline, which means good egg quality. It's so unfortunate that we don't have a really clear diagnostic for egg quality. And unfortunately, we don't learn about what's going on with our eggs as far as quality until we start trying. And that can be both expensive and heartbreaking. So instead of operating on the back foot, let's get on the front foot and start doing things that's going to have a direct benefit to our egg quality. And one of the best things that you can do that you are not being told about enough is eliminating and reducing the toxic burden of things like plastic, things like fragrance, and just things in our life that are not contributing to good health overall, but also good fertility. Once you understand how to release the toxic burden, that leaves your body more space to fund your life and just living, but also fund abundant fertility, conception, pregnancy, postpartum, the whole 9 yards. It's about making your body baby friendly. And when you remove a lot of the toxic burden, that's just exactly what you do. So if you like this video, I loved having you here. Please like, please comment, please share, and of course, please subscribe. I would love it if you do. I hope that these videos show you that a lot of unexplained infertility can be explained. We just have to look deeper at the root causes. I'll see you next time.